Proposition 38, I'm looking at this, which is a much more simple one. All it does is raise taxes and send them directly to the schools. There's no sharing of information, and it's pretty straightforward. This Proposition 38 asks, should California personal income tax rates be increased during the 2013 to 2024 period, and to provide funds for public schools, early childhood education, and some state debt payment for the first few years of its life. The history, again, is that California schools are in trouble. They rank in the lower third of the nation in school funding and have some of the largest class sizes in the country. We know that thousands of teachers have been let go or laid off in the last few years, that school nurses, counselors, music, the whole area of what constitutes a good school have been decimated. And so Molly Munger, a wealthy civil rights lawyer and product of public schools, has sponsored this bill, contributing almost $24 million of her personal fortune to improve the public school system and early childhood education. The loss of $20 billion from the school in California in the last 4 years have everyone, including this wealthy individual, alarmed for the state's future. And I would say that most of the time I'm concerned about these rich people that come in and are sponsoring something, because almost invariably it has to do with wanting a constitutional amendment to somehow help their business. But this lady has a very interesting biography, and she's worth reading. And she's seems not to be in that particular type of person. So it's an interesting read. Anyway, the proposal, this measure would increase taxes on incomes as low as $7,500, but by a small amount, maybe $50 or $60 a year. But it would gradually increase, and the rates would go up until by the time you got to incomes over $3 million, it would be about 12.5% income taxation rate. See page 59 of the official voter guide for the exact amounts. Again, there's a whole list. If you make $3 million, you can check to see how much you'd have to pay next year, and so forth. It's quite well detailed. The measure is expected to raise $10 billion a year. The law calls for 60% of the funds to go directly to schools, 30% for debt repayment for the first few years, and 10% for early childhood programs. On the other hand, she does not call for any money for the community colleges. Local governing boards would make the decisions about how the money would be spent. No monies would be given for salary increases or administration. Funds would be off limits to legislators. More money will be allocated for poorer schools, and it, again, like the other proposition, it does create some rather carefully developed auditing structures. The proponents say that schools, once again, would become high-quality places of learning. Music, sports, counselors, nurses, and libraries would be reinstated. Schools would cut class sizes, increase their offerings of vocational, technical, and college preparatory courses. The supporters are the president of the California PTA, California Teacher of the Year, 2 of the California Teachers of the Year, and also a fellow named Edward Olmos, who's an actor. Remember the movie Stand By Me? Well, he acted in a wonderful movie about educational reform. These are the ones that are proposing that you vote for this measure. And you can look up on page 66 of your official voter guide to see more about the arguments in favor of it and who else is in favor of it, other names. Now, what do the opponents say? Well, we won't get better schools by throwing money at them. We need school reform and pension reform. Spending is out of control. Small businesses who file as individuals will be hurt and jobs will be lost. So who's in favor of this? I mean, who's opposed to this bill? Well, the California Chamber of Commerce, the San Diego Tax Fighters, and a member of the Orange County Board of Education, an individual whose name I don't recognize. So again, this is a measure, Proposition 38, that would just raise personal income taxes, but it would raise personal income taxes starting at a very low level. It would rise gradually, so that if you were making $20,000, you wouldn't pay very much, but if you made about $60,000 or $80,000, you would start paying a couple of $100s a year. So, and it would go all the way up. It would raise much more money. It would raise $10 billion. And again, the $10 billion would vary depending on how stable your personal income tax revenues were. And it would go exclusively to K through 12, and also a rather large amount to preschools and early childhood education. So, the two measures. Now, what happens if